If you were asked who or what was responsible for giving anime mainstream exposure that led to its success that we see today in the United States, you would probably answer Toonami, and you'd be right. Throughout its history, Toonami aired all sorts of anime, from Dragon Ball Z to Yu Yu Hakusho and Naruto. The list goes on. Because of its unique mascot Tom and chill atmosphere, the Toonami brand is just as memorable as the anime that kids tuned in to watch. Toonami felt like home. It would often sacrifice precious commercial time just to give an uplifting message or two to its audience. The team at Toonami wanted the kids that tuned in to be inspired. There was none of that patronizing garbage that other channels might have fed you. Nuh-uh. This shit was the real deal. Young fans of anime, such as myself, could just get lost in front of the TV for hours, mesmerized by the unique art styles, music, and storytelling that could only be found in anime at the time. Toonami gave us our fix. Toonami was our home, and Tom was like that really cool friend that you'd hang out with, and he'd talk to you in between shows. You're probably noticing this is all past tense. Yeah, well, after years and years of growing into the anime juggernaut it was, and at the height of what I'd say was Naruto's popularity in the 2000s, after 11 years on the air in 2008, Toonami was abruptly canceled. You're probably thinking, but Mugi, Toonami is still on every Saturday night. And yeah, you're absolutely right. But there was a 4-year gap where Toonami was pretty much dead. And it was really weird because anime's popularity was bigger than it ever was. Television was still viable at the time and there was plenty of anime to air. So why the fuck was Toonami canceled? Why would Cartoon Network give up on so much anime despite the high viewership? Let's rewind the clock back by a few years, shall we? Toonami used to be a weekday block, meaning it aired every Monday through Friday for a couple of hours, mostly around the time school was over and up until around dinner time. This was the perfect time for kids to tune in and watch TV. This was actually when I first started watching Toonami. I'd come home from school every day and watch Tenchi Muyo or Dragon Ball Z, and it would be the perfect thing to wind down to after a long day. This would continue until 2004 when Toonami on weekdays was oddly canceled and replaced by a lighter block called Maguzi. Yeah, that shit's a different story for another day. But anyway, Toonami was moved to Saturday nights for only a couple of hours. This means we were only getting one new episode of shows every week rather than one each day like before. But the compromise is it would be a bit more appropriate to air shows with more violence, closer to being as uncut as possible. Although I would argue that Dragon Ball Z airing during the weekdays was still pretty violent, but yeah, times and sensitivities change, so I get why it was done. And it's not like we had the midnight run version of the block again, which was basically a 1 to 2 hour block of reruns at midnight before Adult Swim became a thing. The midnight run airing the Namek and Frieza episodes of Dragon Ball Z was actually how I discovered Toonami. Imagine my excitement when I learned it was on during the day, every day, with new episodes. So when Toonami stopped its weekday run, it took over Saturday nights on Cartoon Network for a couple of hours before Adult Swim began airing. This is also when newer shows started airing on the block like One Piece and Naruto. Naruto was really popular right out the gate, and that was even with only one new episode airing every week. Imagine if it were airing weekdays like Dragon Ball Z. But then again, Dragon Ball Z was long finished in Japan by the time Cartoon Network started airing it, so it seemed a bit more appropriate for the nearly 300 episode anime to air one new episode each weekday, as opposed to Naruto, which was still airing in Japan with only about 150 or so episodes under its belt at the time of its English dub premiere on Toonami. If they did the same thing with Naruto and aired new episodes every weekday, they would catch up with Japan likely within a year. You know, in hindsight, the Naruto dub being caught up with Japan or just right behind it would have been a great idea. But then again, at the time, all parties involved were alright with there being a healthy distance between the English and Japanese broadcasts. So remember how I said Naruto was incredibly popular since it started airing? It quickly became this era of Toonami's equivalent of Dragon Ball Z. It was so popular that sometimes Toonami would just take another show's time slot in its very limited schedule, mind you, since it's only for a couple of hours every weekend, and replace it with a Naruto rerun. So that's 2 Naruto episodes a week. Or sometimes they do a Naruto marathon every few weeks, where nothing but Naruto would air during Toonami. And as a One Piece fan at the time, waiting for the upcoming Funimation dub to premiere, I remember being incredibly annoyed by this. By 2007 or so, it felt like it became more of a Naruto block than an anime block. Which was good for those that loved Naruto, but for viewers like myself that wanted to watch other shows, it was kind of growing tiresome. Naruto Shippuden also began airing in Japan, and Naruto's English dub was getting preferential treatment by both Toonami and the growing anime industry. So, with Naruto being at a fever pitch in terms of popularity, it only seemed like things would continue at this pace, and Naruto Shippuden would find its way to its home on Toonami. Naturally, right? So that's why I think what happened next was so incredibly bizarre. Right around this time, Cartoon Network was shifting up management. This new management wanted to compete with Nickelodeon and Disney Channel for some fucking reason. So the plan was to integrate live action shows to the lineup on a channel called Cartoon Network, a 24/7 cable network that airs nothing but cartoons airing live action. A channel that built its reputation for a decade and a half at this point on airing nothing but animation, now wanted to air live action. And they did. And it was bad. Real bad. With shit like Reanimated and Out of Jimmy's Head and all this other live action bullshit, just trying so hard to be Disney Channel preteen sitcoms, suddenly taking up so much space on the schedule. I guess that was fine as long as it didn't meddle with anything else that was clearly established on Cartoon Network, right? Right? I mean, at the time, Cartoon Network was airing things like My Gym Partner's a Fucking Monkey, so I guess nothing truly of value was lost. Until it became clear that anime was taking up too much room on the channel, and had to go too. This is when Toonami began to fall apart. The block that was already short enough as it was just kept getting shorter and shorter, and the aforementioned mascot Tom got an upgrade. No, it was a downgrade. It was an overall fucking downgrade. Look at this piece of shit. This thing was a fucking disaster. This is not Tom. I mean, yeah, it is Tom, but no, it's not my Tom, okay? Let's just say that I'm not the only person that felt like this, and it didn't really vibe well with the pre-established style that the block had. So, why on earth would Cartoon Network want to scale back on Toonami? Like I said, anime was growing far more popular, so why would the network lose interest in airing it? Apparently, it was more affordable and profitable to air their in-house programs, and live action was more affordable than animation. They weren't really profiting from the merchandise side of things from airing anime. Unless it was kids anime like Pokemon and Beyblade. I knew when the anticipated Funimation dub of One Piece began airing in late 2007 and was pulled from the block half a year later in early 2008, that was the beginning of the end. But hey, at least Naruto was still going strong. Cartoon Network was making its way through Naruto's filler material pretty quickly, but even then, that couldn't stop what was inevitably coming. In September 2008, the day finally came, and it was announced that Toonami was coming to an end. Tom gave a heartfelt farewell, and Toonami was officially over as of September 20th, 2008. It was truly an end of an era, and Cartoon Network claimed it was due to low ratings. But I don't think that's the only factor. Remember, anime was bigger than it ever was at this point in time, and Cartoon Network kept slowly but surely reducing the block to a shell of its former self. That cool style was all gone, too. All the little things they stripped away from the block added up, and it was taking its toll. Tom looked like this weird Thomas the Tank Engine fucking thing. Seriously, Tom should not have a face. And regardless of the poor creative decisions that were made, that was it. Toonami was no more, with its last 2 hours of broadcast time being Ben 10, Alien Force, Samurai Jack, and you guessed it, Naruto. 1 hour of Naruto. Of fucking course. I mean, look at that lineup. It's fucking pathetic. Cartoon Network claimed it was due to low ratings, but I don't think that was the only factor. Remember, anime was bigger than it ever was at this point in time, and Cartoon Network kept slowly but surely reducing the block to a shell of its former self. Episode 198 of Naruto aired on Toonami's final night, and there were only 22 episodes left to go until Naruto's finale at episode 220. Naruto would continue to live beyond Toonami on Cartoon Network by just a little bit more. By January 2009, though, it became clear that even Naruto, Cartoon Network's favorite anime heifer that they fucking milked at every chance they could for the past 3.5 years, was not enough. Episode 209 of Naruto was the last new episode to air on Cartoon Network, and they only had 11 episodes left to go! They were almost there, and they just really had to let it go. Why? It was really clear that the suits at Cartoon Network really did not give a fuck for anime whatsoever if even fucking Naruto couldn't even finish airing. So, by 2009, Naruto was gone, One Piece was gone, and even Dragon Ball was gone. The only anime that Cartoon Network was airing at the time was Pokemon. But anime just continued to grow in popularity, especially thanks to the internet and streaming services that were just beginning to emerge. And then, out of nowhere, Disney XD, previously known as Toon Disney, which is a sister channel to the Disney Channel, announced that they would be airing Naruto Shippuden in fall 2009. Yeah, what? The network that Cartoon Network gave anime up for in an effort to be more like it would be the one airing Naruto now? The biggest anime of the late 2000s in the United States? That was definitely a curveball. Those 11 episodes left of Naruto ultimately never ended up airing, and it just went straight to Naruto Shippuden. But it continued to get even weirder from there, because in 2009, that very same year, Dragon Ball Z got a refreshed and compressed new version that aired in Japan called Dragon Ball Kai. Surely it was inevitable that Funimation would license it and begin releasing it on DVD, right? Nobody really knew for sure where or even if it would air on TV now that Cartoon Network wasn't interested in airing anime anymore. But seeing as Naruto Shippuden was airing on Disney XD, anything was possible. Would Disney XD pick up Dragon Ball Kai and be the next anime juggernaut? So, early 2010 rolls around and we got our answers. It wouldn't be Disney XD that was going to air Dragon Ball Kai's English dub. It would be Cartoon Network's other competitor, Nickelodeon. Well, it would be Nicktoons, which is Nickelodeon's sister channel, just like how there's a Disney Channel and Disney XD. So they began airing new episodes of Dragon Ball Kai, or, well, as it's known here in the West as Dragon Ball Z Kai, daily, just like Toonami did on the weekdays a decade prior. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, Nicktoons honestly had a really cool presentation. They would eventually get even more Dragon Ball content too, including some Dragon Ball Z movies and even Dragon Ball GT for some reason. They even aired some other anime here and there too, such as Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And with that, anime continued to live on at the very networks that Cartoon Network wanted to so badly emulate. I mean, it makes sense why their competitors would snatch up series like Naruto and Dragon Ball. They were absolutely huge for Cartoon Network, and even if they couldn't get any decent merchandise royalties, they could still get a pretty penny from the ad space that would play during their airings. But even then, Naruto and Dragon Ball would only air for a short time on these networks for one reason or another, such as finishing their runs or deeming the material too violent. At this point, nobody really thought that Cartoon Network would be interested in airing more anime, and anime was actually becoming less and less viable on TV in the United States, especially since binging episodes via streaming was becoming more and more popular. I mean, sure, there was Adult Swim, which would air some anime on Saturday nights, yeah, but it didn't really seem like they were being too ambitious with it. It just kind of existed. But then, out of nowhere, April Fool's 2012 rolled around and changed the game forever. Adult Swim would often celebrate April Fools every year, and they would do something funny, such as airing The Room or playing episodes of Full Metal Alchemist and sprinkling fart sound effects all throughout it. But in 2012, they appeared to be playing The Room again, only for it to jump cut to Tom, Toonami's mascot, who quickly reintroduced himself and made it clear that Toonami was back for one night as an April Fool's joke. And it wasn't that ugly fucking Tom either, it was classic Tom. Well, not classic Tom either, Tom 3, the cool Tom. That night, classics such as Dragon Ball Z, Tenchi Muyo, Outlaw Star, and Gundam Wing aired. Everything felt like it was lovingly wrapped as the commercial bumpers that aired emulated those of the past. They even aired a video game review and beloved promos, such as Broken Promise, Dreams. Suddenly, and without warning, Toonami was kinda sorta back, after being off the air for almost 4 years. People on social media were going crazy, and it all became clear. Toonami had a chance to come back on the more appropriate Adult Swim. But it wasn't a for sure thing just yet. Adult Swim would air cryptic bumpers that said things like, "We're listening," and "We're looking into it," along with "Want it back?" Tweet #BringBackToonami. And lots of anime fans such as myself really wanted this to become a reality. Seriously, with it being almost 4 years off the air at this point, it was clear that Toonami went out like a wet fart during its last year or two during its original run. Toonami deserved better, and it could be better. It not only needed a break, but it needed to be on Adult Swim. So, how could this even be possible? Well, the folks that worked on Toonami also had lots of creative freedom at Adult Swim. They were fully able to rebrand it, but they just needed to figure out how. According to Toonami co-creator Jason DeMarco, quote-unquote, "Usually Adult Swim has a brainstorm about what we might do for April Fools any given year, where everyone throws out ideas and we see what sticks. Mike Lazo tossed out, what if we just brought Toonami back for a night and switched it over and it was suddenly like you were in 1999 watching Cartoon Network? Everyone loved this idea immediately, and the conversation very quickly moved on to, how the heck can we pull this off? They only had a few months to get everything together. Remember, they didn't have the rights to air these shows anymore. They had long since expired, but they still kept working on it in hopes that it would work. They had to make a list of what they thought were the definitive Toonami shows, and then work with their head of programming on how to approach distributors and see who'd be willing to license one episode of each particular show for such an odd event. Surprisingly, the distributors were quite willing to play ball. Since that night, it became clear that by the time Adult Swim folks were back at work the very next business day, that their April Fool's joke was no longer just a joke. People were serious and incredibly passionate about watching their favorite anime airing on Toonami. After all, to people like me that watched anime on Toonami in the late 90s up until it ended in 2008, Toonami and anime just fit together perfectly. So then, not long after during the following month, Adult Swim confirmed that Toonami would be back for good on Saturday nights, along with the hashtag Toonami's Back Bitches, to show that it's embracing its new home on the more mature Adult Swim. Now that it was back though, not everything went the way everyone wanted it to. At first it was a bit rough since they needed to build things back up. So this meant reusing older assets and continuing to air the anime that was still airing on Adult Swim's Saturday night anime schedule. This time just with the Toonami branding, meaning that the commercial bumpers and such were all back too. Slowly but surely, Toonami grew, and anime that never got the chance to properly air on Cartoon Network, such as Naruto Shippuden and Dragon Ball Z Kai, finally got their chance. Newer, bigger anime would also find its way here too, such as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Dragon Ball Super, and the 2011 Hunter x Hunter anime. As of this recording, it's been 11.5 years since Toonami's Adult Swim revival. This current iteration of Toonami is as old as its original run on Cartoon Network. And despite TV losing lots of relevance over the past decade thanks to streaming, it still continues to air to this very day, with powerhouses such as One Piece and Naruto Shippuden still airing. I definitely feel like it's able to continue this strongly, due to how much anime has grown in the West. My favorite Toonami memories are watching Dragon Ball Z during the Midnight Run in 1999, Naruto's 2005 premiere, and watching One Piece's Funimation dub every week until it was removed. Maybe I can make a video on that someday. Let me know if you're interested. I have so many other fond memories as well, but those are the ones that stand out the most to me. What are your favorite Toonami memories, whether it be from its original Cartoon Network run or its current Adult Swim run? Were you there when Toonami was originally canceled, and did you also catch its April Fool's Day airing in 2012? Be sure to tell me all about your Toonami experiences below, and if you like this video, be sure to check out these other videos I've made as well. I go a little deeper in depth with what was going on with Dragon Ball Z Kai while it aired on Nicktoons, and even 4Kids' Saturday morning block. And that was all when Cartoon Network didn't want anime. Until then, see you guys next video.